Hello everyone and welcome to a re-recording of the second part of the first episode. Now, I have no idea why the sound just went silent in that episode. I recorded the first 3 episodes back to back without switching OBS on or off. But for some reason, as you might have noticed in the first episode of our Polish series, the sound just cuts out at 37 minutes and it's just a nice 40-minute jazz session for the second half of the episode. So quite frustrating, and I was away as well, so I could not re-record quickly. I just got back home, so I'm going to re-record, the 40 minutes of the first episode here, and post this along with episode 2 should be up shortly as well. But it is important to set up the series and to get that discussion, on record as to how I thought about focuses, research, production, and construction for Poland as we start our playthrough. Now, this is obviously just a new save that I started a new game, but in future episodes, episode 2 and 3 will go from the first episode. That was the real game. That's the Iron Man save. This is not an Iron Man save. This is just kind of a random start to the game, but it's always Poland, right? So it's always the same setup, before one pause. So in the first half of the first episode, where the audio was playing, we went over kind of what Poland is, or the government, the national spirits, and then we went through kind of the general landscape of Poland, right, which we saw as being mostly forest and swamps. So a few rivers to help us here. There's obviously Soviet Union on our eastern flank, but this is defensible, and what this does dictate to us is that we need a lot of infantry. Infantry digging in can work really well for us, along with some land force as well, because all of this terrain favors infantry, favors defense. Partly because it actually favors defense, but partly because it introduces a malice, or puts some malice on the attacker. So attack and breakthrough suffers when you try to push through forests or marshes especially. To our south we have kind of mountains here and hills, again favoring the defender. And here on the western flank we have Germany. We don't expect much from the south, hopefully, but on our western border is obviously Germany, and here the situation is a little tougher. We do have the rivers here and a little bit of the forest. In the south we have the urban terrain of the Katowice city, and then we have some little forest here. Then it's unfortunately mostly plains, but we do have this river to help us, and a bit of forest southwest of Warsaw, and kind of next to Lodz. So this is kind of defensible. We're gonna have to defend Poznan. I mean, actually, while we're looking at this, we also need to consider the supply lines, although we can obviously rebuild these. But we could just, instead of trying to defend these plains, we could just fall back in the event of an invasion and defend behind rivers. We're gonna have to defend Poznan. We might have to defend these forests too, around here, to protect the supply lines to the front lines. And then here, further up north, also forests, so we could defend these. Obviously Danzig, we could defend Gdynia. I mean, it's plain, so it's a little harder, but it's possible. That is our strategy. We can't unfortunately push back into Germany, although we would like to. I mean, where it would make sense is mostly would be here, where we could push from these 2 provinces and maybe along the plains to cut off the Germans in Köslin. And down south we could push to Breslau if we could muster. We could also take this German airbase away from them, and I guess defend across the rivers. So I guess an alternative to losing these plains and falling back behind the river, which I guess will be our base case, we could concentrate a force around Poznan and actually push south. I mean, we'll see what happens to Czechoslovakia, but it's kind of just here. If we could push south, cut off the Germans and get Breslau, we could kind of, best defense is offense, right? Cut off their airbase, cut off the supply line. I guess, we would be supplied ourselves from Poznan, and then, connect this with a railway, create a pocket of Germans here, destroy them, and then, push up our defense line up to here. I think this is Silesia, if I'm not mistaken. Oberschließen, Niederschließen, which I think is lower and upper Silesia. So this is something we could grab from the Germans. And you know that, and then again, there's a river here. We could at least push towards the river and just establish a defensive line here. But obviously we can't do that before the war starts, and we can't build forts here. So we will build a defensive line, potentially push from Poznan for south, or at least if we do concentrate a big force here, every time they push towards Lodz, you know, we threaten to counterattack here and cut off their supply line. So that is our defense strategy on the west. And here on the north, we're obviously going to need another army. This is defensible, but here we would prefer to go on the offense in a pincer movement from Suwalki through these plains here to Königsberg, and then cut off the German supply lines. Obviously, they won't be able to use the railways in the event of a war, but they will supply themselves through the sea, which we can't blockade, because we got no navy. But if we pincer the Germans here, instead of fighting them in this great forest, or Allenstein, we just push through, get Königsberg, surround them, and mop up this pocket, and then move this army, perhaps to Poznan and push here. And while we're mopping up the northern exclave of, I guess, Eastern Prussia, the Germans, we're going to need an army here. It's going to need to be strong. I mean, if we could possibly build some light tanks, maybe, this would be really useful for us. Could be, I mean, we could dream, but 2, maybe 4 these sort of assault divisions could really help us. I mean, I can really see them help us take Königsberg, Köslin, push through to Breslau. Be really, really good for us. On the Russian side here, as we've discussed, I think that is actually recorded on sound, so I won't go over it in too much detail, but we could push through on these plains and cut off the Russians from their supply lines as well. And maybe, I mean, we could always, if we could push the Soviets back to this Mogilev, Vitebsk, we could get their supply and kind of, just defend ourselves along the Dnieper River in kind of Ukraine and Belarus. Right, because I don't think there is any way, I mean, us on our own making it to Moscow and defeating the Soviet Union, I highly doubt. We're playing on elite difficulty as well. And definitely not in, depending on when the war starts as well. So that is the plan. Now, what does that basically, again, dictates that we need an army of 24 divisions at least in the east. We need an army of 24 divisions at least in the west. We need an army of 24 divisions at least in the north to create, it's hopefully an overwhelming force. Again, to mop up Königsberg and then shift this to the west or the east. I mean, let's see, so 3 armies at least we need, plus maybe a smaller 12 division army, but ideally 24 again, down south, because we don't know what to expect here. Some mountaineers would be really good here. And mountaineers means, this is what we're going to go with special forces. Again, I doubt we have the industrial capacity to produce transport planes and get paratroopers operational, nor do we have the airplanes to win air superiority to be able to land paratroopers. And also, if we go with mountaineers as the special forces division, where is that? Yeah, special forces. We get if we elevate the mountaineers, we get, where is it in the special forces? We get Rangers. Rangers are first-line elite skirmish troops specializing in infiltration and close-quarters combat. Yeah, so these guys are basically the better version. Right? We get defense bonuses with them. We get movement bonus with them as well. Movement and attack. But I guess mountain defense. No, actually, forest, we get attack, movement. Yeah, we have a lot of attack. Well, we have a lot of forest. So yeah, these guys work very well for us. I mean, Marines, they're good at attacking forts, crossing rivers and marshes. Movement, attack, defense plus 20%. Actually, pioneers are talented engineers adept at solidifying beachheads, general engineering project, and consolidating gains. Entrenchment 2.5. You know what? This is very interesting. So what do these guys give us? Supply, recovery, reconnaissance 1.0, organization 30, training time 120, etc. I mean, I guess pioneers would be nice to defend the marshes in the east, but that's not, we don't have that many marshes. I mean, right, and then the rest of these are kind of useless for us. Yeah, we're gonna have to go with like rough terrain. Okay, mountains. The initiative, mountain unit design cost, rangers design cost, mountain artillery, Support artillery to all mountaineers. Yeah. Yeah, let's probably get more mileage of this. All pioneers, I like them too, right? They probably give it... They're basically like upgraded engineers. Yeah, we'll get better entrenchment with them, etc., etc. Yeah, but all this naval invasion, like, yeah. So defense bonuses are nice. Yeah, paratroopers, definitely not for us. We just don't have the... And I think we'll never have the air superiority to do this. So yeah, so that's what we need. We need a lot of infantry. We need a lot of defense. We need engineers, reconnaissance engineers probably. You know, we just need to stand our ground as much as we can, put some forts and defend the forests and be smart about it. That is how we're going to, again, depending on when the war breaks out, this is the base plan. Right now, we're in a weak position. It also means that we're going to need to produce a lot of things. That means we're going to need to, yeah, industrialize. But before we talk about any of that, let's go ahead and look at the next, and I think where the audio cuts off in the first episode is I was talking about manpower and saying we actually do have a lot of manpower. We have 32 million people, and even with 1.5% of you know, with the volunteer army, so only 1.5% of population being eligible for service, we have almost 500,000 manpower. And yeah, so if we could change our laws to even 2.5, that's easy, or even 5%, that could triple that. So we could easily have 1.5 million, 2 million men here. So we do have the manpower for our infantry to stand our ground and really have a chance against Soviets or the Germans. I mean, doubt we'll ever be able to hold off both, but let's see. We'll do our best. Now, and that is when the audio cut out. We've talked about basically the military, the setup, and this is kind of the strategic positioning of Poland with the national spirits and with the, you know, how the landscape looks, how the supply lines look, right, which dictates what we need. We need a lot of infantry, right? But yeah, so that's kind of it for the setup of the country, the geography, the resources. I don't remember now whether we went through this in that first half of the episode, but let's have a look. We don't have a lot. We have 5. Let's just do it again here quickly, just in case. So we have 13 steel here in Kielce. Krakow has 5 oil, 8 steel. Katowice is very important. It's got 11 aluminium and 30 steel here. Yeah, look at this. Lower Silesia has more aluminium and steel, and Upper Silesia has even more aluminium and steel. Yeah. Then there's even more aluminium here. Even more aluminium and steel among the Hinterpommern. So I guess, I don't know. I call it West Prussia. Ostmark. Yeah. So these are all very nice German provinces. I mean, in the east there's frankly... I mean, there is oil in Kiev. How's there oil in Kiev? Not sure. I mean, there is chromium, but that's for like late game armor. What we really need, to be honest, is a bit of this. We need tungsten. We'll need that sooner than we need anything else. And to be honest, no one has tungsten. The Czechs have a bit of tungsten. Yeah, it's only chromium and aluminium in Yugoslavia. Who has all the tungsten? The Greeks. Which we should be able to get, no, through Bulgaria. We'll see. Yeah, anyway, that is kind of the position of Poland. So let's have a look at the national focuses. That was the next thing we'll look at when the sound cuts out. And here, let's first of all do a broad overview. And we go from the right to left. So on the right-hand side, we have the prepare for the inevitable. I haven't actually read through all of these, but what I do know, this is for when, you know, where you are at war and you want to go into create an exile government or government in exile. So we're obviously nowhere near that, so let's just leave that for now. We have the between the seas concept. That is when you have a large army, when we build ourselves into more of a regional power and we want to just kind of do some diplomacy with Baltics and several alliances, Baltics or Central European powers, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia, etc. We're obviously nowhere near that at the start of the game, so again, irrelevant for us for now. Then we have 4 political pathways. We have nationalist constitution, which is sort of like the fascist nationalist way. We have assembled regency council, which is sort of the monarchist way. We have organized peasant strike, which is sort of the communist way. And we have complete the April constitution, which is the non-aligned way. So I really like the focus tree. I mean, haven't assessed the effectiveness of any of them. What is this music? Ethiopian Highlands. I'm not sure. Someone asked in the comments, by the way, like, could you share the playlist? It's just Allies radio station. I actually think I had this turned off, and it was just the Allies radio station. That's the jazz, or the jazz music. But anyway, these 4 broad political focus trees, which we'll talk about which one we pick and why. And on the left-hand side, we have prepare for the next war. It's not a bad one. This is all about kind of the military research, a bit of army experience, etc. on the left here. And on the right, we have Plan East and Plan West. Somewhat, I guess, unique. Or maybe I haven't played enough Hard to Survive 4, but this sort of a type of focus tree where you pick what Plan East or Plan West, right, first. Then underneath, you have some sort of... It's basically defending the eastern border or the western border, training some special troops to help with the defense, like mountaineers here. You get Prussian Guard, get a bit some forts kind of for free, effectively. And then we don't have to. There's 8 of them. Yeah, there's 8 on each side. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 on the Eastern Plan East and 8 under Plan West. We don't have to research all of them. We can research, I think, a few, and then we click on Complete West Plan. And that means that whatever we haven't researched is now locked, right? Whatever we have researched obviously stays, but it does let us then pick Plan East or the opposite plan, because the same goes for the Plan East. So basically, you pick Plan East for 70 days, you do whatever, 1, 2, 3, or all of them. Then you click on Complete Plan East. That takes 0 days, which then opens up Plan West. But we cannot do both at the same time. That is that. And here, then... a little to the left, we have things to do with Danzig and kind of just and the Navy and just dealing with the Germans in Danzig. Yeah, kind of establish our Navy. Again, it's not going to be something we'll look at the start. This is something we could open up with for sure. We'll talk about that in a little second. And on the very left, we have a sort of custom industrial tree for Poland, which is great. The 4-year plan. We have the Polish School of Mathematics here. Really good. Gives us a research slot. And then there's a bunch of basically industrialization focus trees. There's even another research slot, but basically more military and civilian factories. We'll discuss, whether we can open up with this and whether we want to go for it. But just as as an opener, let's say the 4-year plan would take 35 days, and it stands for: we must plan for the expansion of our infrastructure to accommodate not only our present industry but also the future. We gain 1 times 100 research bonus for construction technology, and we gain the 4-year plan, which grants construction speed plus 10% for 4 years. I think this is, this must be 4 years. 13 would be 1200, and 60 times 4 about, so 65 times 4 would be about that. So about 4 years. Well, it's a 4-year plan, so it makes sense. So that's kind of an opener, so we construct things faster. I think a very good opener. We get a construction technology. We get also 100% boost. Then we kind of, it's a 35-day plan. I like to see just what is one step down. We got central region strategy. We get to civilian factories, some building slowage, and 1 times 100% research for industry, which again is very good from the beginning. By centralizing factories far from any borders, we will boost our production while also protecting them from any would-be conquerors. Indeed, a really good one. We also have the Polish School of Mathematics here, 70 days, but again, getting 1 research slot is very strong for us. We have 3 at the moment. We have minus 30% penalty, so with 4 slots, we effectively negate that penalty. And here, mathematics is central to almost all things in the technological sector. All across Poland, from Lwów to Warsaw, the mathematical schools are flourishing. We must capitalize on this golden age of Polish thinkers and grant these men all that they need to make Poland the technological powerhouse it deserves to be. Again, excellent. And the third one here is fill the railway gaps. Poland was once divided between 3 powers, and as such, our rail networks are distant and unconnected. We must unite these 3 separate railway lines into one if we're to make Poland the centralized industry we needed to become. Again, 1 infrastructure in Polezi and Wielika, I think that's in the east, and we get basically a bunch of railways. So we have 70 days. Again, not a great opener for sure, but we will see why it's useful later on. So between these, sort of opening up and building things is a good one. Planning for war, maybe a little bit too early, but we do get minus 150 times cost reduction for land doctrine, but we don't have any army experience anyway yet. Get a bit of army experience with the next one for 70 days. We do have standardization of equipment here, 1 times 100% research bonus for infantry weapons. which, given the fact that our army will be predominantly based on infantry for the first, let's say for the next 5 years, our goal is just to build 4 armies of infantry, try to arm them as with the best weapons we can, support them with at least artillery. This would be a really good one. We also have the here army modernization, gives us another 50% cost reduction for land doctrine, but also another 100% research bonus for infantry weapons. So super strong. So again, not a bad opener. We could just we'll talk about research in a second, but yeah, we could allocate 1 research point to infantry weapons, because again, if we do manage to build 3 or 4 armies of infantry, we're going to have about 100 divisions. Increasing anything to do with infantry weapons, any bonuses or new types of equipment is huge. I mean, it is the single biggest factor of our army and military strength. So strong. Here, obviously, plan east and plan west. It's fortifications, a little early. We get a bit of some of these are kind of, you get a bit of some free anti-air. We'll get here 3 times 100% research points for anti-air. We'll read about these probably in more detail, but you see it's mostly land forts, kind of for free. Get some free divisions, not bad. 4 mountaineers, 3 Prussian guards. We do get here again land doctrines kind of for free, some Polish units, more Polish with some infrastructure. Some free fortifications. Eastern conscripts. Here we gain Eastern conscription, which grants division training time minus 25% for a year. This is a good one to do, I think, a bit later, when we actually have the industrial capacity to produce enough infantry equipment to be able to equip even just training armies. So if we got 6-8 divisions training at the same time, this could be a big one, because then within a year we could cut this down by 25% at the training time. That would be really good. Now, let's think, however, thematically and immersively, what we're gonna go with. I don't want to go with non-aligned. I feel like we're not here for neutrality. Our sort of theme here, we're not gonna go with the communists, and we're not gonna go with monarchy. That's all old. It didn't work before. They failed to keep Poland independent, win independence, and maintain it. The communists also, it's not for us. We're not falling back into the Russian Empire. Basically, we know what the Soviet Union really is, and we're not going for it. Non-aligned. Look, it does a lot. Let us maybe ally ourselves with the West, but we know where we're squeezed. Our position is right. We're sandwiched in between here. We highly doubt anyone's going to help us or be able to help us in time. We think it is left to ourselves to defend Poland, make it as strong as possible to be able to withstand any would-be conquerors or even deter, and to build itself up to a rightful kind of strong regional Central European player. And because of that, we're gonna go with the nationalist constitution. And that is kind of thematically and immersively what I think we should do. Let's kind of read the description here. So you see, the April Constitution has yet failed to solidify the Polish identity, but some members of the National Democrat Party and Falangist Party have offered their support in amending the Constitution to place the identity of our nation above all else. That is exactly what we want to do. We want to consolidate and mobilize the population behind a clear Polish identity. We'll need that to recruit all the troops, to mobilize and motivate them for the defense of our young nation against would-be conquerors, which we know they're circling around us, right? They're all over, east, west. We have really strong neighbors, and I really like it thematically, and I also really like the fact that normally when you play fascists, you kind of have to be evil and ruthless, whereas here it feels to me, although I haven't really played much of Poland myself, I just looked through the focus trees and just played first few years to kind of a few times to try different paths. But what I really like about this is it feels to me like we are the noble kind of. It's a good fascist playthrough, right? I mean, here it's for good reason. You're uniting a country, consolidating this sort of this political squabbling that's stopping the nation from coming together and mobilizing. And so that's what we're going to open up with, and that is what I open up with in episode 1. So we're going to pick kind of national constitution as our political pathway. We're going to go down here, and we'll see in future episodes what the next few focus trees brings, but we will start with this for immersion and kind of thematic purposes. Now, whether we start with Nationalist Constitution or the 4-year plan could be a good question. But the reason I want to start with the Nationalist Constitution, because the effect it gives immediately, is to remove the April Constitution, which grants, the April Constitution grants political power gain minus 15%. We already have penalties, I think, from the elite difficulty, so we need to remove these as fast as we can. Conscription laws cost plus 15%, and we are going to need to change those. Economy laws cost plus 15%, and we are going to need to change those. Political advisor cost plus 15%, which is in effect a further penalty to political power gain, right? Because that's the way you get these. And daily support for unaligned, we're also getting plus 0.05. Now, we will remove all of that in 70 days. That's excellent. It will then add a nationalist constitution, which grants stability, unfortunately, minus 10%. And stability, currently we have 50. Stability represents the people's support for the current government. High stability makes political changes easier to push through and helps the economy run smoothly. So right now, with 50%, you're basically not getting any bonuses or malices. With minus 10% stability, we're going to be at 40. That will decrease our factory output by about 10%, a little bit less than that. Dockyard output, we don't really care. Consumer goods factories will need more. Political power gain will be affected slightly by, I think, like 2 or 3%. So not great, but we will get daily fashion support plus 0.05. And we get available as political advisor Roman Dmowski, which grants daily fashion support plus 0.10. So not great, although it does remove a lot of the malices. It introduces the stability decrease, while, you know, the situation, I guess the political situation is kind of unclear. But what it will let us do, once we, you know, the fascist support starts ticking up, and I think we start with about 10%, I believe. Yeah, 10%. So once this ticks up to a little bit, to, in fact, what do we need for this? Oh no, wait. Yeah, we do more than 15% support for ONR Falanga. So once this ticks up to 15%, we can then pick integrate the Indencia or integrate the Falanga. And I go into detail in episode 2 as to which one we pick, because it's in episode 2 that we unpause. Again, that will be posted shortly. But here we gain political power plus 120, and we gain some good advisors. And with integrate the Falanga, we also gain political power plus 120. And the reason we need political power, and the reason we want to, you know, remove these malices to economy laws changes, right, economy law cost, and gain political power as fast as we can, is because the first thing we need to do is to change civilian economy, which we start with, to partial mobilization. And the civilian economy gives us, first of all, expected number of factories put on consumer goods is 35%, right? Now, we're not converting factories just yet, so those the first two malices, 30% don't matter. Fuel gain per oil doesn't matter that much. Fuel capacity doesn't matter that much, although it's nice to remove it. But the biggest penalty is civilian factory construction speed minus 30%, right? So we need to get rid of this as quickly as we possibly can. And with partial mobilization, we get rid of all of this, and we even gain a military factory construction speed plus 10%, as well as conversion cost minus 10%. And this is number one thing we need to do, because we do have some factories. We start with 26 factories in total, 9 military and 17 civilian, of which 10 we use for consumer goods, right? So these, first of all, also partial mobilization will reduce the expected number of factories put on consumer goods to 25%. So again, we'll free up some factories for construction, and we will need that. This is the first thing we need to do. We need to mobilize the nation, and we need to, you know, partially mobilize straight away, because we know war is coming, right? We're going to put the identity of the Polish people at the forefront. We need to, and we know we want our independence. We know it is under threat, you know, and we know what we need to do. We know the landscape. We have decided on the strategy. We need to get those, people into the army, get them on the border, get them trained, get them equipped, and for all of that, we need industrial capacity. We don't have a lot of it, so let's have a look. Kind of what we really need to build is some civilian factories, and we're currently hampered by the civilian economy and malices to construction, so that we need to get rid of this as quickly as possible, get as many bonuses to construction, and start industrializing, right? We're going to need every factory we could possibly get, both in the short term to equip our armies, and in the long term, so that we can again actually make ourselves into a solid Central European power that is capable of projecting strength, deterring would-be conquerors, and protecting itself, defending itself effectively. So, that is why we start with the nationalist constitution, to let the fascist support tick up and remove those malices. And as soon as we get 150 political power, we're going to switch away from civilian economy. After that, we can go with, and that's what we do in episode 2, we will go with the 4-year plan, and then go on from there. All the discussion is in episode 2 as to why we go with that. But, again, because the sound cut out, I'll just do it here. We do start off with nationalist constitution, and those are the reasons I pick it. Now, after this, what else is there to discuss? We've discussed our industrial, manpower, kind of war support, stability, all of this. We've discussed, I think the next thing to discuss is research. So we have 3 research slots and a 30% penalty to research speed from elite difficulty. Now, in terms of what do we research, I think first we go with the kind of standard. We go with electronic engineering under the engineering tab. Right, we live in an age when electrical machines can no longer only warm and light us, but help us think and communicate. Electronics will be key to military intelligence in the coming century. And this is a good one, 140 days. It will give us 3% research speed. We don't really care about the naval, central range finding module, since we don't have a navy and unlikely to have one in, I'd say, even 10-year horizon, at least 5. But it would be good to chip away at this research penalty, as early as possible to gain as much benefit out of it as possible. We'll then go to mechanical computing, this computer machine, and develop again Poland into a research and sort of industrial powerhouse. The next 2 slots, right, we have 2 more slots. I would go with industry, and here we would go with basic machine tools. A variety of newly developed milling machines can be used in military production, from the small and versatile types available to any machine shop to the large-scale advanced models that push their technological limits. And this lifts our production efficiency cap by 10%. Production efficiency cap determines the maximum value for your production efficiency. It can be increased by technologies. So we get 10% here, and this is extremely important for us. Why? Well, because when we go to our production tab, we can see that we are, so base cap in the game is 50%, and from elite difficulty we get minus 30%. So we only ever get production efficiency of 20%. It means whenever we switch, our factories produce, you see, so one military factory will give base production output of 450 per day. The total output will be affected by resources, production efficiency, and other production modifiers. So we're going to be producing, I guess, very little. We're producing then, what, 20% of that? I guess. So that's 0.9 per day. Is that right, for example? Because right now this thing costs 0.5. The infantry equipment costs 0.5. Right. Production cost 0.5. We're putting 2 factories. So that's 9. I wonder how much we actually produce. I don't know the formula for this exactly, but if we have 2 factories, so we're putting 9 in, is that then discounted to 20%, so 0.9 per day? And this needs 0.5, so we're producing 360. I'm not actually sure how these work, but what I do know is that production efficiency matters a lot, and it would be good to lift this so that we can continue gaining it, because right now we're kind of blocked. We're not going to be building new military factories for a while, so if we raise this as a matter of priority, it will allow us to just start building that efficiency into, again, infantry equipment and support equipment, which will be key for our army, given our army basically is just infantry. And so that's why the second research point goes into basic machine tools. Now, in fact, while we're here, again, when the sound cut off, I discussed the fact that, how do we allocate these 9 military factories we have? And what I do is I put 6 into our infantry equipment. We're going to have to, unfortunately, can the interwar small airframes, since we can't really build enough of them anyway, and they don't really matter. We can't afford to spend that 1 factory on the airplanes. And instead, I put 2 additional military factories onto support equipment. We also obviously put on the Fabrika Broni Luchnik, which Luchnik means archer, right? So this is sort of our military industrial organization for our infantry equipment. Put that in so that we can start upgrading our infantry equipment further, as we build, expertise in producing infantry equipment. The reason this is important, we need a lot of it, is because we need a lot for reinforcements. We will need some to train new divisions, right? Let's go ahead and train. I kind of put 3 in the first episode. The reality is we can only really train 2 at the same time. You'll see, like in episode 2 when I unpause, we realized that we just don't have enough production capacity to produce infantry equipment just to equip the infantry divisions in training, right? So we can only really train 2 at the same time. And this is a good time to actually have a look at our infantry divisions. So we have Dywizję Piechoty, which means division of infantry in Polish. And yeah, this is the template. You can see it's really simple. 9 battalions of infantry of 1,000 manpower each, and a support battalion of cavalry reconnaissance. Right. Oh, sorry. Now this will hopefully replace with Rangers later on, but this does give soft attack plus 10% to artillery support and lines. So we will need, one of the key ways of enhancing our divisions would be with artillery. Again, we'll see that when we go over research in a second. We will need 25 experience for that. But yeah, reconnaissance is very good. But also, what does this really require, right? So each battalion of infantry, pardon me, requires manpower 1,000 and infantry equipment of 100. Right, therefore we need 900 infantry equipment for these 9 infantry battalions. And for cavalry recon detachment, we need infantry equipment of 40, right up there in the tooltip, and support equipment of 10. Which again, this is what this is what this adds up to. We need 940 infantry equipment and support equipment of 10. This is what we are producing. Now 3 might seem kind of excessive. I kind of thought about maybe shifting this 1 factory to infantry equipment instead of support equipment, but we will need a lot more support equipment once we switch to Rangers, put in engineers, and then maybe hospitals as support detachment to our infantry divisions. So we'll need a lot more. This never changes in tech, so it's good to just put a good amount of factories in and just get that production efficiency cap up as early as possible. We'll probably up this to 5 in kind of episode 2 and 3 if as soon as we get more military factories. Just get this kind of cranking out the support equipment as fast as we can, and even stocking up on it, because we'll need more of it. And when casualties start rolling in, inevitably we'll need some for replacements, so it's never wasted almost. So that is again, that is what we're producing. That is the reason we pick production efficiency as our second research for our second research slot. And this will help, again, train our troops, equip our troops who will dig in and defend us from would-be conquerors. Now for the third research point, I think I picked construction. We have 285 days. We get improved methods and materials that allow us to construct buildings, both civilian and military, faster. Basically, we get construction speed plus 10%. This is a good one. I did pick it. I did hesitate a little bit in that episode, and the discussion there revolved around the fact that would it not be better to delay and pick something else to research for a little bit, something short, while we get the nationalist constitution, and then we get you could get the 4-year plan after that, so that's 35 days, so in total 105 days later we would get the 1 times 100% research bonus for construction. And so 100 days later we could research and we would research something else during that 105 days, but we would then research the 1936 construction technology with a 100% bonus, so this would take 140 days, not 280. But instead I opt out to just research construction and then research construction 2 with a bonus. Given it's ahead of time, you get more days saved like that, and you also, at the start, you might as well spend the first 105 days already. You're already into construction when 4-year plan is completed, so you only have 180 days after that. so it doesn't really make a difference. If you did get the plus 100%, you would research this in 140 days. Otherwise, you kind of research this in 180 days. And there aren't that many good candidates for 100-day research. So those are the research. That's the research we picked. Now, we also spent some time in that episode discussing just what else is available. So we looked at industry, we looked at engineering. Let's have a look at what we have in air. And actually, Poland starts with basic small airframes researched. We got the small bombs, we have light machine guns, we have cannons, and we have engines 1, the 1933 engine. So the only thing we're really missing from actually even putting in a production line of small airframes, a good, decent airplane, is engines 2. We also need some air experience to actually, design an airplane. But, we actually have, if we had the industrial capacity, we could build ourselves a little bit of an air force, which was actually, a decent one. But unfortunately, we do not have the industrial capacity, so we just leave this out and hopefully maybe capitalize on this later on. Maybe in 1940, we can just start producing some better airplanes. Naval support, Navy, obviously we just skip entirely. We're not interested in Navy, which brings us to artillery. And as I have already mentioned, so here we do have 1934 artillery unlocked. We don't have the production capacity to actually start producing this, but we will have, this is by far the biggest sort of force multiplier for our infantry, right? Supporting them with good artillery. And the strategy here then, in that case, since we don't have the industrial capacity now, and that's what we do in episode 2 and 3, is we will allocate one research slot to just power through, and get the 1939 howitzer 100 millimeter gun as quickly as we can, so that when we actually have the industrial capacity to produce artillery, we just start with 1939 straight away. And that will be the one, that's going to be with us for majority of the kind of the early mid game. If there is a war, this is the one. Right? We'll try to upgrade it and produce as much of it as we possibly can. Just get all of our infantry loaded with this gun. And so it's key. We will allocate a research point, and it doesn't even matter for us just what kind of ahead of time penalty we're going to have to suffer. It is worth suffering, because this is key for our infantry divisions. We do have anti-air unlocked. That is nice to have. Also, we won't have an air force ready. Again, we have limited production capacity, but a support detachment of anti-air would be very nice. It does give defense, soft attack, I guess obviously air attack against Soviet and potentially German close air support, right? It does give a bit of hard attack, piercing, etc. So light tanks could suffer. So this is a good one to have as well. Now, anti-tank we would need to research, and we probably will. Right now, this obviously has adds this kind of bit of hardness, hard attack, piercing of 60, hard attack of 20, bit of soft and defense. So it's also a good one. It does require tungsten, however. So this one only requiring steel. Level tier 2 1939 version of the artillery gun also requires tungsten. Oh, actually, even tier 1 also requires tungsten. So that's something we're gonna have to deal with. But these are viable options. Again, anti-tank, we would need to research it at some point. Again, we don't have production capacity now, so no point in even going there. But you could put in a research point for interwar artillery and get howitzer 100 millimeter as early as we possibly can. And we will do that in episode 2. Again, very important for our infantry divisions. In terms of armor, again, also possible to commit a research point and actually get ourselves some armor. I've already mentioned that it would be nice for to get 3-4 divisions, or 2 to 4 divisions, assault divisions that could help us to push the Germans out of Königsberg in case of a war, and push down south here to Breslau to cut them off. Again, shorten the front line against the Germans. So would be very nice for us. However, obviously the 1938 medium we could push through about 720 days, but we also need basic armor and basic engine, and ideally improved armor and improved engines, and these are all ahead of time, so we don't have the industrial capacity for that. What we could do is research light tanks, 1934, 1936. Painful, but it is possible. You know, the 1930. Well, let's see, if we we wouldn't build 1934, but 1936 light tank, right? We could theoretically build it. I think it would benefit us. It's got armor of 20, which we could improve a little bit if we got these two. 140 days each. Wow. So if we committed 2 research slots, we could get these by sort of like 1938 and actually design a decent light tank. But this one's got armor of 20, it's got decent speed, breakthrough of 9. I mean, the reality is speed not really matter because we don't have trucks yet, as we'll see again in a second, so we wouldn't be able to combine this with a motorized infantry division to take advantage of this speed just yet. So again, a little early to get the armor. But something we could think about just, a couple of years down the road. Support our infantry with some light tanks. This is the 1936 improved light tank chassis. Now, compared to a medium tank has, 30 armor base, slower speed, got 10 breakthrough, we got 9. So, to be honest, the 1936 light tank, I always heard that the general theories of light tanks are useless, just don't do them, etc., etc. But frankly, early on, I don't really see that they're that much worse. And these things take 360 industrial capacity, and this one takes 250. For what? For 10 armor? Obviously, probably bigger guns you could put them. So yeah, I mean, medium tanks obviously better, but I think there is sense in building some light tanks, and we'll see if we are able to squeeze some of them in. It would be really nice for us. Again, a little early, but this is a viable option for putting 1 or 2 research points slots in for a year or 2 years even. I guess this is about 280 days, and 280. So this would be kind of 2 research points for a year plus 1 more. Plus we'd need something like anti-tank as well. So so 2 research points for about a year and a half, and we could get a decent light tank. Start producing light tank. Again, we don't have the industrial capacity, however, right now to actually start producing them. So no point in researching them then in that case. In terms of support companies, so we do have engineering company and recon company unlocked. So we could actually put in an engineering company if we had the army experience. What do they require? Let's have a look. These are the ones that will give us entrenchment, so a must-have for our defense strategy. Right? They obviously give defense in forest plus 25%. I mean, rivers, this is massive for us. It's absolutely must-have. Absolute must-have. Forts we're going to have. So, this is a must. We'll have to upgrade these as soon as we can. It's even worth getting the ahead-of-time penalty, suffering that. But an engineer company, it doesn't really say soft attack, defense, training, time, manpower. Breakthrough, entrenchment 2 doesn't tell us what. It requires a bit of support equipment as always, and I guess support equipment is probably what it requires. So these are good to upgrade maybe a little later. Now we do need the truck as well for logistics, given apart from being very defensible, forests, marshes, and so on, they're good for defense, but they're also quite hard to supply. And so we will need to motorize our supply points. We'll need to upgrade our railways. That is relatively easy to do. But we'll need lots of trucks to motorize our supply lines, but also to provide ourselves with field hospitals and reduce experience loss and general manpower losses. We do have a decent amount of manpower, so this is not like priority number 1 on like engineers and recon companies. But this is definitely a tier 2 priority. Like, it would be nice to save this, get our train our troops, save that combat experience and save manpower, because we're likely to be in it for the long haul. If the war breaks out early, we'd need to hold off the Germans and the Russians long enough and far enough away from our industrial base to be able to build up further and maybe or get the allies in or whatnot. So this is key. A logistics company would also be very nice, again, because forests and marshes, etc., are very hard to supply. So minus 10% supply, I'd say this is tier 3. We are on our home turf. We do have a good supply network. We could build it up. We'll motorize it to make it even better. But, minus 10 supply would be nice. We don't really have many units that will use fuel, but supply would be nice. Also, this is important. This will become even more effective when we start loading our infantry divisions with artillery, because again, supplying artillery in forests and marshes is going to put a lot of strain on our supply network. And so cutting supply, minus 10% on just an infantry division with like, our 9 infantry battalions, not such a big effect. But once we start adding artillery, especially tier 2 artillery, right? Does it even say here what kind of supply? It doesn't really say here, but I mean, it will obviously require quite a bit of supply. And we'll have, 3, probably 2-3 battalions of those in each division, or as much as we can produce. So this is, definitely a tier 2, I'd say, priority as well. And we'll see, actually. Arguably, could even be more important than field hospitals, possibly. Radio, maybe initiative. We don't. Maybe just for our tank divisions, if we ever get any. Same with maintenance company. What does they actually do? What do they actually do? Equipment capture ratio. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul are important to keep military equipment reliable and safe to use. Having companies dedicated to this will ensure that it's given appropriate attention. This gives us a little bit of extra reliability and capture ratio. Reliability, easy maintenance. Hatches around the vehicle access to many different components of the vehicle and allow that crew to perform even complex maintenance fairly easily. Reliability plus 10, production cost minus 5. I never actually knew this, but this is nice. So if you research maintenance company in 1939, basically make our tanks cheaper to produce and easier to maintain, which means we can give them more armor and a better engine. So this could really be good for our light tanks. Alright, reliability bonus plus 5, maintenance company. Variance, okay, more equipment captured. So not a bad one once, if and when, if we get into armor. But signal company, obviously better for, initiative. Again, this is mostly for, assault tank divisions. Again, we'll see if this is, we'll do this. At the bottom here, armored train would be a really nice one, and I think we will get it in episode 2 or 3. This is because, again, we don't have the industrial capacity to even produce normal trains, but we will need more of these trains to supply our troops and our artillery. But we first need industrial capacity to produce our artillery, and then we need industrial capacity to put one or two maybe factories into armored trains, and negate enemy air superiority that way, because we can't really get air superiority because we probably won't have the industrial capacity to build an air force. So we'll just need to rely on anti-air for our troops to counter ground support, and otherwise just repair our railway lines and get armored trains that can withstand attacks better than civilian trains. Obviously they are quite a bit more expensive to produce. They're 105, so 50% more expensive, but they do have air attack, so they can defend themselves, and they have armor, so harder to hit. So worth it. I think it's a worthwhile trade-off, especially given, again, we'll just put a couple of factories on these trains. We're not going to putting any now because this is the top priority, and then we'll just let it run for the rest of the game. So it's good to research those relatively early, but again, not too early, so that we actually have some factories to produce these armored trains. Now, infantry tab will be absolutely key for us. And here, obviously, the 2 lines again, because for the next 3, 4, 5 years, 90% of our power is in our infantry and artillery. So getting the 1939 equipment, or even the 1942 equipment, is key. And actually producing it, though, that is, again, like, you always have to think about the fact you actually need to produce it. We really can't afford to be switching this too early, because we already have a massive deficit here for reinforcements. We're going to need to put quite a few factories into this, get everyone trained and equipped with at least the 1936 variants, right, before we research 1939 and start switching at least some factories for some upgrades. So it is possible that we just commit one research point and just keep researching this up to 1942, maybe try to get this by 1939 or 1940, and then switch our production line to that straight to 1942, skipping 1939. And the benefits are significant, right? Again, 1936 infantry equipment, personal crew and served weapons for infantry, as well as the various other bits of kit a soldier needs. So this is Defense 22, soft attack 6, let's say, right? Hard attack 1, breakthrough 3, piercing 4, whereas 1939 equipment's defense is 28, so 6 points higher, so almost a third higher. Soft attack is 9, so plus 50%, hard attack plus 50%, breakthrough plus 30%, piercing plus 25%. Yeah, production 0.58, 0.5, yeah, so less than 20%, so about 17% increase in production. Cost for, 30 to 50% benefit. And if we look at 1942 one, variance, massive difference, right? It's like, again, 50%, 100% increase in soft attack. So this is the really good one. Piercing, hard attack, yeah, really, really good. So all of this, hard attack, all infantry, motorized and mechanized equipment, piercing plus 100%. So yeah, combined with 1942, here our infantry can then really withstand enemy armor. So these are key, and we will commit research, and we will have to suffer the ahead of time penalty. But it's good to get our infantry, as well equipped as we possibly can, as our industrial capacity will allow. Now a little bit further down, we already talked about the truck, armored cars, kind of maybe. Again, it's better to spend our industrial capacity on producing probably the tanks. These could be used in our as reconnaissance in our tank divisions. That would be nice, but it's kind of a nice to have rather than a must have. Again, there's extra industrial capacity, which we really don't have. Further down the line, it would be nice to mechanize our divisions. Yes, very, very nice, right? Also, by the way, the truck would allow us to actually build motorized infantry, which would take advantage of the light tanks' speed. Yeah, but this is obviously going to be very nice. Get some hardness to our infantry, protect our precious manpower, even though we're a decent amount of it. So yeah, this is something we'll think about later. But again, industrial capacity is the key constraint for us. And that's why we need to industrialize as fast as we possibly can. Special forces, again, we talked about this. We'll build mountaineers, not a top priority, but yeah, that will be something we'll pay attention to. So that's kind of the research we will open up with, right? And again, we need industrial capacity. We have practically nothing, right? We only have 9 military factories. We desperately need even just infantry equipment and support equipment. We don't even have enough for that. And we need at least a dozen factories just to put into these two, so we can just keep reinforcing our and training divisions. So yeah, very much constrained here. Now, in terms of construction, right, with 10 of our factories currently go to consumer goods, so we only have 7 left. So you would think it would make sense to build more civilian factories, but remember, we are suffering. We're in a civilian economy mode, right? The country is sleepwalking into being conquered and sleepwalking into a disaster. So we need to mobilize the population, mobilize the economy first, so that we can actually start constructing these. So before we do move to partial mobilization, I think it is better to spend our time building up infrastructure, because infrastructure, so let's say we build a civilian factories in a province of Lutz here with 60% infrastructure. That would take us until 4th of October. So about, 9 months, right, from January where we're now. Whereas if we built it in a province with 40 infrastructure, it would take us till 12th of November. So it adds an extra more than a month of that 20%. And therefore, right now, the most efficient use would be to build infrastructure in a nice province, right? And you build them in chunks of 20%, so that we can then build factories in that province faster. Now, what another thing infrastructure does is increase the extraction of resources that are in that province. And that is why I build infrastructure in Katowice and Krakow, because that is where we're then going to build our civilian factories, right? So we get the benefit of, extra resource extraction from infrastructure and construction, and we build these in the most defensible provinces down south here in the center, away from the Soviets, kind of away from the Germans, although actually Katowice is right on the German border, but it is an urban province that should be easily defendable, and we will build a lot of forts here to defend it. It's got a forest here to the north. We have a river to protect Krakow. So as long as Czechoslovakia doesn't, betray and stab us in the back, these should be well protected. I mean, this is kind of the best we could do. I mean, I guess you could argue that potentially building in, Warsaw makes sense for the reasons of defense. It's even more defensible. And also, what is this? Lublin. Yes, possible. But we don't get that benefit of resources. Obviously, in Kielce, we get benefit of infrastructure, kind of adding 3 steel, but we get much more of a benefit in Katowice and Krakow. So we're just going to have to risk it and make this our industrial heartland. That's, it's got rivers to the north, east, kind of rivers to the west to a certain extent. But we do have an urban area here, so we'll have to, and we have mountains to the south. So, if we lose this, we lose the country, we'll lose any war. So we're going to have to take that risk. And that's why we open up with infrastructure, followed by civilian factories. And I think, guys, that's pretty much all we did. I mean, the only other thing we did when the audio cut out is that I've created a couple of armies. And then and we assigned a field marshal, and we went with Władysław Sikorski for his defensive doctrine. I'm not a fan of politically aligned generals, but he does have 3 defense. He's one of the 2 field marshals we have. There is an option to promote this guy, General Bolesław Winiewa Długosowski, but he's politically connected. He's a cavalry officer. He's a bit of a, unprofessional. I'm not a fan of this guy. So we're going to go with Władysław Sikorski for his defense skills and defensive doctrine. Again, more entrenchment. He's a Sanation left leader, however. But again, not maybe so bad. They're not disgruntled with the government, as we remember, right? Sanation left. Supporters of reform, the Sanation left believes that Walery Slawek is the true successor to the previous dictator, Joseph Pilsudski. Currently, the Sanation left is a very marginal threat to the dictatorship and is in no position to threaten the stability of the regime, so we'll bear it. In terms of actual armies, so it's west and east, I think in the west I put in Marian Kukel, again for the infantry officer and the defense skill that he has, since we're gonna do again a lot of defending with infantry here on our western border. In the east, likewise, I believe I picked Kazimierz Sonskowski. Again, great skills all around, planning, kind of logistics, and he's got defensive doctrine as well. We'll then set the entire army to train for the army experience. We also set at the end of that episode all of our air force to train. They're using these old interwar planes, which will slowly, due to training, they will wear out. And basically, be destroyed, which is fine. Let's just get a bit of air experience, get our pilots, trained as much as we can, and use those interwar planes for that. They probably won't be much use in combat anyway. That's why another reason why I decided not to produce any airplanes, not to waste any industrial capacity, precious little industrial capacity that we do have. So that was pretty much it. Otherwise, we have missing equipment. So that's why, we dismiss that. Decisions, we dismiss. Low manpower, we dismiss. Mainly because, we still have 130. So, the only other discussion we had in that episode when that sound cut out is that, look, we're basically producing here. So how long will it take? Each division will take until 1st of May. So about 5 months. So we could train 2 divisions a year like this. It's 10,000 manpower per division, so 20,000 manpower, so 40. We need 40,000 manpower a year, right? Which we do have, but we already spent 20,000. This is already accounted for, so we had 150. Now, however, among all these armies, we do have the cavalry divisions. I think we have about 10 of them, and they each have 3,000. I think we have 10 divisions of these. We have 3,000 manpower. Kind of hemorrhaged in them, to be honest. I don't think they're very useful, so we will disband them as we build new infantry divisions, and so we have effectively 30,000 manpower that can be disbanded. So we effectively right now have 160 with 2 divisions in training, so we have plenty of manpower for the first couple of years, given again we're constrained by industrial capacity and how many divisions and how quickly we can train them. And with that, guys, I think that was it. That was all that we missed out on. So we talked about, yeah, national focuses, kind of finished the strategic overview. I think of the rest of the advisors and etc. that we pick, we'll talk about that in episode 2. We talked about manpower, talked about industrial capacity, set our production, set our construction, set our research. Another thing to do with industrial capacity would be to establish an agency and, protect ourselves from espionage. That is a viable use of those 5 factories right now, although actually perhaps it's not. Wait, because we have we actually had a penalty somewhere to I believe, yeah, so this is the embargoed economy that we have. It gives us a agency upgrade time plus 15%. So until we get rid of that, it's probably not good to spend, to put 5 factories onto, developing an intelligence agency. And it's better to spend that. The most efficient place to spend that on right now is constructing infrastructure, because we're not going to get much mileage out of just the intelligence agency. We'll get, 1 agent for counter espionage, and that's it. Anything else will require putting even more industrial capacity into this, which we really don't have at the moment. Yeah. And so with that, guys, that's it. That's what we discussed in that 40 minutes, which I now made into more of an hour. But hopefully we covered everything, and kind of you understand now how we set up the Poland game. And, what is our thinking? Well, we're obviously going with the fascist playthrough, but, I really like this one. But I think about the good fascists here. We are consolidating, mobilizing, motivating the national Polish spirit. Right, and we need it. We've woken up. We know it's 1936. It's gathering storm. It's we know what Poland needs. It needs to mobilize for defense and to occupy a rightful place in Central European politics. So with that, guys, let's end the episode here. This is a sort of re-recording episode 1. So apologies. I really don't know what on earth happened. I just I can't even speculate. Maybe I pressed some key on my keyboard that somehow stopped OBS from recording or muted my voice. I don't know. It still did record the music though, so I don't know why it's only my microphone that seems to have not been recorded. But here we are. I'm going to re-record this, and I'll post episode 2 shortly after this as well, so that you can get into the series. I'm really excited about it, and I will be recording more episodes this weekend, probably 4, 5, 6, 7, so hopefully enough for the rest of the next week. But thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, sorry. Yeah, I mean, believe me, I'm more frustrated than any of you that, the first episode in 5 months or 6 months since I've last played, and, it came out like that. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you understand now where we're going with this and why, and I'll see you in episode 2. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you there. Yeah, bye for now.